Welcome to Doing the Work, a Naples integrated recovery podcast. My name is Brian, and this space is for anyone who's tired of surviving the same emotional and behavioral loops, whether that's anxiety, trauma, addiction, or problems in your relationships. Around here, we cut the surface level advice, no sugarcoating, no platitudes, no bumper sticker wisdom. We focus on clarity, responsibility, emotional discipline, and the courage to look at yourself honestly so that you can stop repeating the same old patterns and start living with intention instead of reaction. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, today I am very excited to share an interview that I recorded with a friend who was a real important part of my early recovery. A lot of times people at the beginning of their addiction recovery journey may feel disconnected, or they may go to a meeting and they don't really feel like it is a good fit for them. And that probably could have been the case for me, that I had gone to several peer-led meetings in my early recovery. I didn't really feel connected. I didn't really love what I was hearing, but I also knew that my life was a mess. I had a lot that I needed help with. And I met this guy during the pandemic online, and he was such a big part of my early recovery and finding community. And who knows if I would have ever stayed as involved in peer programs as I did in the time that I was the most vulnerable had I not met Terry. So I recorded an intro with him on that, and without a further ado, today's topic is about joy and excitement in recovery and some of the interesting or odd or exciting people that you may meet in the fellowship. So this is me and my friend Terry P. This is Brian from Naples Integrated Recovery, and today I have a very special guest that has agreed to meet with me from Bossier City, Louisiana. And I met Terry during the pandemic. At the time, I think I was maybe about 6 months sober. All of the meetings were closed down in town, and there were occasional meetings at the park outside. People were very rigidly enforcing not more than 10 people together and turning people away. It was just a really crazy time. Sobriety was very vulnerable for me. And I was also a little bit off-put, as are a lot of the clients that I work with who are not fully all in with their recovery, because I had some religious wounds and some spiritual stuff that I had to work through. Some of the religiosity type language that you can hear in AA was kind of off-putting for me, but I knew I couldn't get sober by myself. And I truly do believe that a major pillar in my foundation was meeting Terry in the pandemic, because he made recovery really exciting for me. And so I want to welcome my guest, Terry P. from Bossier City. Hi, Terry.
Hey Brian, thanks for having me.
I am so glad that you were able to mark some time off. Terry is very, very busy, but I was hoping that you could just share briefly. You just celebrated 7 years not too long ago sober. Can
7 years sober, I know. Can you believe it? That's
Yeah.
all.
From being such a jacked up disaster just a short
Total
time.
mess. Total mess.
So, do you mind just sharing a little bit about how did you have the idea to form a Zoom meeting in the pandemic, and how did that whole thing explode? Because it turned
Man,
into a large meeting.
yeah, it did. It's had over 10,000 people come through now. It's just crazy. It's ridiculous. And about 600 people every day get an email for it. But yeah, I mean, like you were saying, the pandemic, everything got shut down. There were a couple churches that were still going that had meetings, but most of the clubhouses and everything else had just shut down. I was going to this meeting called First Things First, and it was me and four old dudes, right? Like except for the cigarette smoke, they didn't smoke, but it was what you pictured, like an AA meeting to be. It was fluorescent lights, horrible chairs, commercial grade flooring, and it was just this bland, boring white building that I'd just go into. But I went 7 days a week at 7 a.m. And early in my recovery, I needed that. I needed something just one day at a time to get me through. But the pandemic and COVID came out and everything started shutting down. And so our local club called the Koala Club, which is interesting for your podcast. Koalas are known for not drinking. They don't drink. They get all of their liquids and their water from the foods they eat. But anyways, we would meet at the Koala Club every day. And when the pandemic shut everything down, the club had to shut down because it was city owned and as part of the regulations. And so I went a few days and I'm like, I need a meeting and there was nothing happening out there. And so went on Zoom, which back in the old days in the business world, we used WebEx. So there was like WebEx out there and Zoom was just coming out. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do an online meeting and I'm going to have hopefully the four old stodgy guys come and join me. And, we'll just go from there. And I went to AA Intergroup and posted the meeting. And next thing you know, the first day, a couple people showed up, and one of the four guys showed up. They were like all over 65 years old, ward veteran. There was a retired sheriff, and I would normally meet with those guys. But one guy showed up, and then some random people, not even from Bossier City, came in through the Zoom. Next thing you know, a week later, I continued to post the Zoom meeting called First Things First, because that's what our meeting was called. The password for the meeting was Koala, because of the Koala Club that I used to go to. And next thing you know, I'm holding a meeting. I'd taken all the good and the bad from the different meetings I'd been to over that last year and during pre-COVID. And I'd been traveling a lot to other states for business like Georgia, New York, Florida. And so I'd go to all these in-person meetings and I'd take some of the good stuff and leave the bad. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make this a meeting. And so I put together a PowerPoint, put how it works and a few things down there. And I wanted something to be fun and different because I was tired of the fluorescent lights and the old stodgy type meetings. And man, it was awesome. Within a few weeks, we had 25, 30 people showing up. Within months, we were averaging 100 people every morning. Um, and it's been awesome. The meeting still goes on. We just celebrated 6 years. It's actually officially 6 years old today is when I started that meeting
Oh,
in
no kidding.
2020. So yeah, and people like you showed up and people from all over the world started showing up. Next thing you know, we've got a full-on meeting. I was sending out chips. I would buy chips from Amazon because AA as a fellowship, their general service office had shut down. So I started sending chips to people. I started sending written approvals or written, hey, he attended attendance validations.
Right.
People needed that too because they were going through the court system in different states. And I remember even sending those validations to people in Europe. And so I'd send an email and say, hey, he attended our meeting. She attended our meeting today. And next thing you know, it just turned into this big meeting with, we had all kinds of issues back then too. We had Zoom bombers that would come in and try to wreck your
Oh,
meeting,
yeah.
So we put together like a safety squad team, and then we had this thing called the token team that just send chips. And to this day, they still send chips out to everyone. And back in the early days, we only had a couple years of sobriety on the meeting, and I had less than a year, or right at a year. So I didn't feel worthy at all to be holding this meeting, but it just worked out that way and it just blew up. So that's how I started it. It was all during COVID, and I can't believe it's still going to this day.
Well, and thank you for your service and getting all of that rolling, and also Like a humble servant, Terry did eventually turn the keys over to the team, and that it was not Terry's meeting, but really the group's meeting, and that
That's
even though
right.
he had started it, once more and more service people started jumping in, because when I started going, it was Terry 7 days a week
It's just
of but I was one of the first people that he had recruited to start helping with chairing the meeting, and I liked that he put together this script. And something that I can remember to this day was he had not only the text but also with crazy exuberant energy, like don't be a crusty old, make this exciting, like you actually want to be here instead of hi
That's exactly
Brian.
right. Well, we called it Serious Subject Joyful Day, and it was all about joy. I mean, it was the pandemic. No one was in a good mood. People were losing their jobs, right? They're stuck in their houses. And so let's have some fun, right? Why can't recovery be fun? And that's really what I needed too. And it worked.
So I know that this is going to be a really broad question, but I was hoping you could talk a little bit more about that, because this is something that I run into a lot with people that come to counseling. They really need more support than I can give them, more than even an IOP program can give them. There's really something about peer-led programs that give them community that people in early recovery or just in recovery in general really need. But nearly universally, I recommend meetings to people and they say, I got there and it was just four old stodgy guys and they were just doing this whatever. And bro, that's just not for me, man.
Yeah.
And so, how do you make recovery more fun than just the text alone? How do you bring a meeting to life and give it some actual spirit so that it doesn't feel like you're checking a box and going to mass and getting a signature, but actually that you feel like you're part of something?
Yeah. I mean, starting that meeting for me, I wanted to, I had enjoyed some meetings throughout the years, traveling, and every meeting out there is typically got the same foundation. Um, but when I started this one, I really wanted it to be about joy and having a good time. And in fact, I remember we used to put on the PowerPoint, we'd say, this is life or death, because it is life or death, but it's okay to have a good time. Um, for me, I think it's who I surround myself with too. I think, going to meetings, which is important, really important for me. I went to 6 meetings a week in the early days of sobriety, sometimes seven or more, one every day for sure. But for me, it was about who I surrounded myself with too, because I think we can get into that routine with those meetings and it's the same people and it's the same routine every single day, and trying to break that routine and that cycle and trying to find people that are like you, that are like-minded, that want to have some joy involved in it. I think that's what worked out for me. It was finding people like you and others that really, enjoyed the ride. But I've enjoyed AA a lot more because it's been a really good time that I've had with a lot of fun people. So I think it's who you surround yourself with too.
Definitely. So, how do some of the stodgy guys that have been sober for 50 years respond to a Terry that comes in there with all this piss and vinegar at 7 a.m., ready to do the readings and just like so full of life? I mean, probably just under the threshold of what mania might look like. How did
There you go.
how did they respond to that?
Some of them didn't show up again. A couple of them came and then they like, this is not for me. And some of those bleeding deacons where, there were some people that were frustrated with how we would hold the meeting. I still kept the foundation the same, but we just had a lot of fun. In fact, people would describe it as a zoo because before the meeting, when people would be talking, before we would mute people, to start the meeting. It was just crazy. You'd have people talking about everything under the sun for this first 15 minutes, and then we'd start the meeting, and it'd just suddenly be quiet. We'd mute everyone, and we'd get into the meeting itself. Um, but yeah, some of the old timers weren't necessarily a fan. It's funny though that some of them after a while came back and started to enjoy the meeting. My sponsor, he's got 30 years of sobriety. He said, it's not for me, but he kept coming back to it. So I was appreciative of that. Everyone's got their own style. I know you and I specifically, we wanted something that was a little bit different. I think, the old crusty, you know, same thing, same routine, all the same writings and readings every day. You gotta have some of that. You gotta have some structure around your meetings. So we'll say the Serenity Prayer. I did the long version of the Serenity Prayer. We did how it works every morning. So, some of those routines that you see in other AA meetings, I kept those alive. But the goal for us was to have fun. And that meeting, Zoom meetings wasn't for everyone. A lot of people were technologically challenged, and
Hmm.
couldn't even get Zoom to work. And still I've got, older friends that are like, no, Zoom's not for me. I'm going to go in person. And I'm like, hey, that's great. That's awesome. But when we had the pandemic, we had no other option. So we had to find something that worked for us.
Hmm. Something that you brought up that did seem like a Terry spin, and I'm hoping that you can say more on it. I had never been to a meeting and I had never heard the long version of the Serenity Prayer before I met you, but I can tell you that as a therapist, that is so applicable whether someone is in recovery, whether they are spiritual or not. There are a lot of different themes in the long version of the Serenity Prayer most people are not familiar with at all. And I hate to like put you on the spot, but can we talk about the long version of the Serenity Prayer and why you chose that and
Sure.
what makes that so much different? Everybody's familiar with the Serenity Prayer, which is really kind of rooted in Stoicism, dichotomy of control, of accepting what's out of your control, changing what you can, and then wisdom to know the difference. But there's actually a lot more to that. Tell us about the long version.
The long version, after it said, grants us serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, the wisdom to know the difference. And then it goes on to say, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as he did the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him forever in the next. I just love that because when I read that out loud, it gives me just calm because I really struggled to live one day at a time. Before AA, I was living in the future, freaking out about everything. Fear drove most of my decisions, or I was living in the past and just, complete exhaustion of myself, frustrated. My ego was deflated completely. I was very upset with the choices I'd made, but I never lived in the day. And so when it says enjoying one moment at a time, just enjoying the little moments, accepting hardships as a pathway to peace, right? Who wants to deal with hardships? But you know what? The hardships I went through is what made me who I am today. Um, Taking the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. So accepting that the world is how it was, especially during the pandemic, that the world was so messed up that God still had it, right? He's still in charge. And then that I may be reasonably happy in this life, supremely happy with him forever in the next. It took me a while. I didn't realize that it's okay to be reasonably happy. I wanted to always be happy all the time, right? And that was just who I am. I'm just an always up, want to be happy kind of guy. But to be reasonably happy through challenges, I really like that part of the long version. So those specific phrases in there really help me and help me just center and focus on that one moment, and that the world is as it should be, and that there is a God and God's got it and I don't.
I love that. I can remember exactly where I was the first time I heard you reading that, and unlike people who kind of just quickly go through this, Terry was a very animated chairperson who would actually interrupt himself in the Serenity Prayer to say things like that, like reasonably happy. Hold on a second. I don't like that. I want to be happy all the time.
That's
And,
right.
and here I am like used to my very sterile meeting that's the only way that I had ever seen a meeting. And so, yeah, Terry, I think that you made it. Certainly, you did add a lot of joy and excitement and silliness. It's not for everybody. But I can tell you that there are a lot of people that really need something like that. And if it's okay do you have anything else on that? Otherwise, I'd like to pivot to something else.
No, let's pivot.
So, another thing is that often people go to a meeting, and when they are new, first of all, I don't think anybody wants to be at their first meeting. Um, and a lot of times people will go and they'll see a couple of old guys hanging around. They don't really feel connected. They're under the sterile lights and they're like, I'm out of here. Or they'll see a couple of people talking and they won't really feel connected. And they're like, I don't, this isn't for me. But something that Terry had implemented with somebody else at the meeting was a newcomer liaison. And why was that so critical? And the meeting still does that.
Yeah, that still does that. When you go to an in-person meeting, they'll usually ask in the beginning, anyone from out of town or new to AA for the first time. And there's that I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. I think it's uncomfortable for everyone. Who wants to, you're already there. Like you said, you didn't get there on a winning streak. So life is already shattered. I'm sitting in this fluorescent light, crappy club with a bunch of people that I've never met before, and they're going to ask me if it's my first time to a meeting. And then, usually you say, "Hey, my name's Terry," or you got to stand up. At some meetings, you have to stand up and do a little speech and introduce yourself.
Ugh.
Man, I didn't want any of that. What we wanted at First Things First in our meeting, we still do it to this day as a newcomer liaison, like you said. And the newcomer liaison is basically a person that reaches out and just says, "Hey, if you're new, reach out to me. Tell me what tools I can give you. Can we give you a big book? Can we give you, are you celebrating a sobriety length? Are you 24 hours sober? Can we send you a chit? Can we send you any readings, any prayers?" And so we wanted the newcomer to feel like they could come at their pace and reach out, right? So sometimes when people would come to the meeting, they wouldn't say a word. That was okay. That was okay. We wanted them there no matter what. But the newcomer liaison gave them an opportunity to feel warm and welcome, right? And not feel like an outcast, which you end up feeling like if you're brand new at a meeting. We also didn't require anyone to speak or, hey, introduce yourself, tell us about yourself. We don't ask for any of that. We had that newcomer liaison so you could reach out to them. They'd set you up, and then we'd say, hey, can we send you an email every night at 6:30 p.m.? So we send an email every night to people, and it's got all the readings for the next day that we're going to use. And so it was just that welcoming spot, right? Because like you said, none of us got there on a winning streak. None of us really want to be there, and it's embarrassing and it's shameful for a lot of people, especially in the early days. So that's how that newcomer liaison came about.
Yeah. And a lot of times those people might even hang out after the meeting, which you get so sometimes with meetings you get people that once that Lord's Prayer is done, they are out of there.
They're out.
But what's your thought about the meeting after the meeting, and why is that part important?
And the meeting after the meeting is important. We used to just kind of meet after the meeting, and we ended up creating breakout rooms. You could do that in Zoom. So we created a men's breakout room and a women's breakout room, and then a breakout room just for people that were early to sobriety. And we had a breakout room for people that were really struggling. So if you're having just a bad freaking day, come into that meeting. Someone was always there just to sit and talk. Um, I think that meeting is really important. I think that's where we develop those relationships. I mean, I could go to a meeting every day and hide if I wanted to. I could
Mm.
come in right when it starts. I could leave the minute the Lord's Prayer is done and bolt out that door. But the meetings after the meetings, Zoom and in person, I think are the most important because that's where those relationships start to grow. And, my therapist always says, watch out for two things, isolation and resentment. And isolation is for me, someone that struggles with depression sometimes. Um, Isolation for me can be really, really dangerous and really bad. And when I start to isolate, that's when things start going really poorly. So the meeting after the meeting, I think, allows you to create those relationships that, can get you through the hard days.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And so, without putting you on the spot of mental health, well, obviously we know that you've got mania, but or this high
Yep,
energy.
definitely
But
do.
so for a lot of people, they can go to a meeting itself, and that can help them stay sober. A lot of other people need the full program. They need to work the steps with a sponsor. They need a real full clean out, and some people also need meetings, steps with a sponsor, and therapy.
Yep.
So how do you tease out which is which? And if somebody asked you to sponsor them, well, actually, I'm going in a couple of different directions. What's your thought on that? What kind of things would somebody need outside help outside of AA?
Well, and I don't know if I've told you this, but I was diagnosed bipolar 2 years ago. And so that
Truly, actually, mania.
true mania. And as I think back to starting the meeting and other things I've done in my life, both good and bad, the bipolar diagnosis really helped me understand myself a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I wanted to let you know that and let your viewers know as well, which is that additional diagnosis has actually helped me quite a bit. Because I think to answer your question, for me, I have to have multiple things. I have to have meetings. I've got to have the steps. I've got to contact my sponsor. I still contact my sponsor every single day. That's one of the agreements we had. Um, and in fact, there were five things that we were taught to do every day. One was don't drink or use today, right? That's pretty easy. That's we can check that off. I can do that today. Make a meeting today of some sort, whether it's Zoom or in person, whatever. Pray today, contact my sponsor today, and then do some step work and some service work today. And if I did those five things, and I don't know like which of those five things is what does it. So I think it's a mix of all of them. You know what I mean? And so for me, what I noticed too, I started going to therapy and I needed that. I needed that extra ounce to discuss areas in my life that weren't being discussed in AA. And AA again is great, but I think it needs to be paired with a lot of other things, like working with other people, meeting with a therapist. I think that's really important. So if I look at those five things, I don't know which one works, but I'm going to keep doing them all. And to each their own. Everyone's got their own style and things. You and I have talked about that. Everyone's got their own feelings around things, but there's not a one size fits all. There's just not. I think there's a foundation of the steps. There's a foundation of the AA program and other programs, other 12-step programs. And I think that's really important. And having a sponsor is so important for those relationship reasons. But I think it's a mix of all of those things. So if I miss a meeting one day, I'm not losing my mind. I don't pray perfectly every day, right? I don't do any of these things perfect, but I do it progressively better than the day before. And so progress over perfection, I think, is a great statement. And I try to follow that.
Well said. And I think that so something that I have seen for a lot of either people who spent some time in recovery and then went away or did a little bit more field research, Uh,
R&D, as you said it,
yeah,
research and
some
destruction.
yeah. So if they're doing a little bit of research and destruction, or if they are clients, they've relapsed nearly universally. The first thing is I stopped. And whatever it was that was keeping them sober, they stopped going to meetings, they stopped praying, they stopped doing whatever. And I don't want to ask you to share too many things if it's too personal, but one thing that you had talked about, and I think it's really clinically appropriate too, is you've talked about times that you put God in a box.
Mm.
And so, can you just share a little bit about what does that mean, and why is that so important as part of ongoing like recovery and meetings and working all of that, doing
Yeah.
all those things you're talking about?
Well, and I like what you said earlier about I stopped. I think there's the two favorite words are I've stopped or I've got this. That's
Mm.
my other three favorite words. And I say favorite because I've said them before. Because when I got sober March 21st, 2019, that was from a relapse from 2018. I had been sober for nearly 9 months and I stopped. I stopped going to meetings. I stopped calling my sponsor. I stopped praying. I stopped going to therapy. I
You had
stopped,
it. You
just
had it.
stopped. I got this. Yeah. And so those two little words totally applied to the God in a box, to that perspective. So what I seem to notice in my life is things will go really bad. And then once they get to that really bad point where like I can't fix it anymore, it has to get really bad. Okay. And I mean really bad, like I blew my life up. But once it gets really bad, then if I humble myself and surrender and say, you know what, I don't have this, I don't have this, and I give it to God and I start to pray and I start to do the program, things go better. And historically, they've gone better when I give God that area of my life. But what I tend to do is put God in a box, meaning, like, let's say work is going really well in my life. Work is great. You know what? I've got this. I don't need God here. You know what, God? I need you over here in this area of my life. And so I'll put God in a box and say, I don't need you here. I need you over here. I need you where I think I need you.
Uh,
Next thing you know, that area of my life usually starts tumbling into destruction. And next thing you know, I look up and I'm like, where's God? Because I kept putting God in a box and next thing you know, I've got God up in a box in my attic, right? And it's all dusty and it's got, insulation on it. And I got to go find it. And I can't find the God box anymore because I kept putting them in there. So for me, it's about keeping God front and center. And it's hard to do sometimes, but that's that's for me the patterns that I saw in my life, um, especially addiction related. It was always that I said, I've got this, put God in a box, give him, I'd surrender my life in one area or multiple areas and things would go better, but then I'd put him in a box and then try to move on with my life. And so when things aren't going well in certain areas of my life, one of the things I need to remember and remind myself is God in charge of this, or did I put him in a box?
Yeah, so usually when you've put God in a box, Terry turns into a jacked up disaster. Do you have a shirt that says like back up Terry or something? What's what
Yeah, put it in reverse, Terry. Back it up, Terry. It's from a YouTube video of this guy in a wheelchair named Terry, and they're starting some fireworks. He starts the fireworks and he tells his friend, back it up, Terry. So he pulls his wheelchair backwards because the fireworks nearly blow him up. But yeah, that's now
how
there's another
fitting.
there's another God box too. So here I've got this God box my friend made for me. It says God box.
Oh,
This is different than the God in the box we were talking about. This one, I like it because if I'm really having a hard time in my life in one area, doesn't matter what it is, and like it's over, things are never going to work out, my whole life's gone to crap. What I can do is write it down and put it in this God box. The deal is though, if I write it down and put it in the God box, I'm not allowed to worry about it again. And if I do worry about it again, I have to take it out of the God box. I'm supposed to look up to the sky and say, God, I've got this. And
Uh-huh.
that's really hard to do. So that God box, that particular God box is coming really handy with a lot of my worries and fears. Because no, I don't want to take that thing out and tell God that I've got this. So that's another God box that has come in handy for me.
I love that. I have recommended that for a couple of clients that are a little bit more spiritual than others. But if I can shift, um, step two is a process for a lot of people of coming to believe. There are probably a lot of people that you have met, as have I, that have some spiritual wounds, or when they hear God type language, it can be kind of off putting for them that they're like, I don't know, man. I mean, I kind of like your energy. I like this and that, but I don't know if I can do that part. What might you say to try to encourage somebody like that if that's where they're at in their journey?
Man, I would just say give it a try. For instance, people say, I've never prayed before. Just try it. Pray, and pray how you will, how you want honestly, whatever God you think you're praying to early on, just try it and see if it works because I guarantee it works. And that's part of prayer. But people that struggle with God, I say I don't do the saying that people have in AA, well, go make a doorknob your God, because that's just not going to happen. But if you can look around and agree that maybe there is a creator, right? That's all we have to believe, is that there's something bigger than me that can handle this issue of alcoholism and addiction. And if people can just believe, just a splinter of belief that there is something bigger than them, I think that's where it comes to importance.
Yeah, well said. I uh I let clients know it's really a much smaller hurdle than you think it is. All you have to believe is just that the way you're doing it is not working and
That's
that
right.
something else, anything else besides you is better than you alone.
100%.
And
Anything else? Yeah. I got myself here. So, I mean, and that's what I'll say. I got myself to where I'm at. I cannot bail myself out of this. I can't bail myself out of the things I put myself into. I had to have something or someone bigger than me help me out.
if someone feels stuck in their recovery or bored or disconnected, what's something that you might recommend to them, or what would you do to encourage them or tell them to change?
Well, I think I'd use an AA phrase that I learned in AA, which is move a muscle, change a thought. Mix it up, try something different. If you don't like in-person meetings, go online. If you don't like online meetings, go meet with a therapist. If you don't like meeting with a therapist, try praying. If you don't like praying, just move a muscle and change a thought. Get out of your house or your apartment or your building or whatever you're doing and go for a walk because it will change how you think. I think the move a muscle, change a thought really helped me in my early days because whenever I would get stuck in my head and start to tailspin, because everything's up here in my mind, right? I don't have a drinking problem or a drug problem. I have a thinking problem.
Hmm.
So when I start to move out of that and try to change something up, I think it's just paralysis. People get, we get worn out to do the same thing over and over again. We get into routines, and it's just important for us to break those routines. And I think that's what I try to do is usually if someone is struggling, it's because they're in some routine that is just not working for them. So move a muscle, try something different.
But that's scary though. I'm
Yeah, it
comfortable
is.
with the things that I'm doing. I'd rather just keep doing this thing where I'm miserable or I'm not really happy or I'm languishing.
But usually when you're talking with someone, you realize what they're doing is not working because it's
Right.
insanity. It's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, right? So we'll see that. But uh, try. You got to try. And that even being in a program of any kind, you have to try, right? There's 12 steps, not that hard. It's really simple. It's just not easy. right? But you got to try.
Now, when I had met you, I had not completed my step work. I was doing step work with somebody in town, but I did work through the steps, and I noticed that First Things First never sent me a certificate of finishing the steps. Now, is that
You
something
never
that
got a graduation certificate?
no, so
That's a big failure on our part. We owe that to you. No, I'm just kidding. It's funny because that's what I used to say in the early days. I thought I graduated. I thought when you do the 12 steps, checkbox it. I'm a checkbox guy. Let's get it done. Let's
yeah.
check through, right? Um, and then I realized, wow, there's a lot of people that are older than me, that are more sober than me, that continue to go through this program. I've got a 52-year-old, 52 year sober friend in AA. He's in his mid 80s. I mean, he's been sober longer than I've been alive, and he still goes. The reason he goes, he says, I wake up every morning with untreated alcoholism. Every single morning is brand new, but I still wake up that person. I wake up an alcoholic or an addict. And so I think for a lot of us, it's we want to graduate. I mean, everything in our life and culture is about graduation, right? We go through kindergarten has graduation now, fifth grade, eighth grade, 12th grade, college, right? There's always a graduation of something. You get a certificate in something, you get an award for it, right? You know, but in our life of recovery, it's just not like that because it's a constantly progressive battle, if you will. It's just constantly going. It's not checkbox it, one and done. It's not like what we've learned in the world. And so we have to get used to that. But yeah, you never got a graduation
No,
certificate.
see, if you look behind me, I've actually got a space that I'm waiting for you to send
We need to say
that
that.
I
Yeah,
finished the steps, and I still have not got that. 6 years later, I'm still waiting for my I finished the steps.
I love it. Yeah, I'll make something for you on paper mache.
So we have to keep working them. That's the point of the
We have to
steps?
keep working them and have to keep doing some of the hard work. Yeah, some of the hard work and some of the, like I said, those 5 things earlier. I got to keep doing those 5 things every day. I don't know which one it is or if it's all 5 of them, but I've got to keep doing them.
So I've had a couple of clients who have told me I worked the steps, it didn't work, and as soon as I hear it in past tense, I'm like, this is an indicator that this person is not real familiar with the 12-step approach then,
That's right.
because the whole
Yeah, it's
point,
ongoing. I mean, I really thought, I think a lot of us think that, when you go to, especially when you go to AA, a lot of the clubs, you'll see the 12 steps written down, they're in our big book or they'll be on a wall at my club. And, my brain immediately goes, oh, 12 steps. You start reading them, you're like, I've got that. I can do that. All right. Maybe I'll work the steps on my own. I got this, right? And then you start really diving deep into it. You realize that not only do you need to work those steps with someone else and a trusted advisor, a sponsor, um, but you need to do them continuously. You don't just, I don't complete an inventory step 4 of my life and say I'm done because I'm going to make a mistake tomorrow. I'm going to make a mistake today and I may have to do more inventory work. But it's not just, hey, I got sober, check the box, give me the graduation certificate, we're done. Because I tried that and it does not work. It does not work. Because I stopped, right? Because the whole thing is if you graduate, then you stop. You don't need to do anything else.
right? Yeah, it's done. It's terminal. Something else that is commonly read at meetings that I had also never heard before the Terry way, and I was hoping that you could share. I don't know if you can go through them from the top of your head, but um, if a person is to work the 12 steps, there are some guarantees or promises that are told in the literature that take place.
Oh,
And I was hoping that you could share, as some hope, what are those promises?
well,
And
there are 12 of them.
I'll go through them if you can just break them down for me.
Okay. You're going to break.
So,
Okay, good.
so first of all, it says that we have to be painstaking. What is that about? Why painstaking? I can't
I
just like
know that's a
sit and
bunch
eat
of crap.
goldfish. I just want to just kind of chill and just like have Terry do the work for me while I passively watch.
If we're painstaking about this phase of our development,
We're
we'll
going to
be
be
amazed
amazed
before
before
we're
halfway
halfway
through.
through. That's
A
right.
new freedom and a new happiness.
See, I didn't have any freedom when I was out there. I just didn't. I thought I was free, but I really had freedom when I got into AA and I got into start working the steps and turn my life around. Like I'm completely free now. Before, I was not free. I planned my whole day around alcohol and drugs. It drove all of my decisions, you know? New happiness. I mean, let's be happy. We have freedom now, you
Yeah.
know?
Joy. Uh,
Joy.
One was exceptionally hard for me to hear when I was a newcomer that I would not regret the past or wish to shut the door on it.
That was a hard one for me too, man. That was really hard because I always struggled with the past, and when I would bring up the past, I would go into a spiral, and next thing you know, my whole day is ruined because I'm now thinking about the past. Now I can look at the past and realize, hey, I made that decision. It might have been good, bad, or otherwise, but it's where it's put me in my life now. And it's okay. I can look at the past and I can say, it's okay. That made you who you are now.
So my early recovery, I was going through a lawsuit, getting fired from being a police supervisor, being accused of, I'm gay, but being accused of sexually molesting a female, like that was mentally ill. I mean, it was insane how much stuff. And I was like, I can never, ever recover from my reputation and my life being destroyed on top of everything I've already done in addiction that I've destroyed everything. And
Yep.
I can tell you that all of that messed up shit has been uniquely useful to other people in very similar places,
100%. Absolutely.
which goes into no matter how far down the scale we have gone, we'll see how our experience could benefit others.
Oh, I love that one. No matter how far I've messed up, like you were just saying, you thought there was no hope. No matter how messed up, I was $1.3 million in debt when I got into recovery. That's how bad it was. I had so much debt I couldn't even declare bankruptcy. All that went away. And I'm just very blessed and thankful for that. But I had to do a little bit of work, just a little bit of work, but yeah, I was able to get through all that. And I don't think it matters how deep you've gone. Like the deeper, the better, I think, because that really is a refreshing story. It gives me hope when I hear other people that have gone through
Yeah.
divorce and death. I haven't in my sobriety had to deal with anyone dying yet, except for my animals, my dogs. And those were both hard. But I know at some point family's going to start to pass on. I have to be prepared for that. My parents are getting older. And I've watched people go through the death of a loved one and seen them stay sober and get through it joyfully. And so I know now that I can do that, right? So it's cool to watch other people go through that.
Dude, yeah, when my dad died, it was not a thought to drink through that. And I remember thinking, I don't think I could have ever had the repair that I had in my conflicted relationship with him if I didn't get sober and do the
Mm,
work through the steps. Like that freedom that I had, that on his death, that I wasn't angry at him anymore, and that like so much healing had taken place. Like, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, 100%.
The feeling of uselessness and self-pity. Why
Self-pity.
self-pity?
Oh
Which
my
is a man.
gosh, I had so much self-pity coming into the program, but the feeling of uselessness and self-pity will go away. Because when I got into the program, I just felt shame. I was in complete self-pity. I mean, like we said, you don't come in here on a winning streak. Things did not go well. So the self-pity that I had, oh man, that's how I lived my life. In fact, that's one of the excuses I used to drink and drug was self-pity. Things aren't going well for me. Woe is me. My life sucks. Let's go ahead and screw it up some more and do some more R&D, right?
Did you lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in your fellows?
I actually did. It's crazy. The program actually taught me to care more about other people. I really did. I mean, like I said, my whole day was focused around how could I drink and drug back in the old days? How could I get through the day to make sure my comforts were handled, right? How is my comfort? It was always about me and my selfishness. And so, the program really taught me to love others and care about others more so.
Um, our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Seems like that kind of builds off. Was there anything that you
That's
used to add on that?
no, that one I just say my whole outlook on life will change. Life is much better now.
Fear of people and economic insecurity. Well, 1.3 million. I don't know that too many people can top that, Tear Bear.
There it is, the economic insecurity. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. And then I would always say, what about the stock market? What about my 401k, right? What is up with Bitcoin? And I always made fun of that because a lot of my life before getting sober was focused on economic insecurity, right?
Mm.
I was constantly worried about money. Even when I was doing well, I was worried about money. And that finally left me. Does it still happen to this day? Yeah, it'll still show up. But I know that I've been through so much that economic insecurity has left me. And I wouldn't have been able to get through the program without that promise. That promise is so awesome. And, we can joke about it, but, we all worried about a retirement. We all are worried about that. We're all worried about how the market is doing, how it might affect us. But the thing is, that insecurity will leave us because we start working the steps and we start to find out that there is joy and peace and happiness and freedom in sobriety.
We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us.
Yes. Think about all the situations we used to have, right? That would come our way in addiction and how we would respond to them versus how we respond now, right? It's completely different.
I one for that, I mean, I've always been pretty high anxiety. It runs in my family. I think it was part of my self-medicating for a long time. And even sober, I'm still pretty anxious, even though my presentation may not be so. But I can tell you, I mean, one place that I saw that was when I turned in my badge. That was like my identity. I didn't have a plan B. I had nothing after that. And I just threw it in a box and drove out. And I was like, I'm going to be okay. And that was truly baffling for me because for someone whose entire life was consumed in fear,
Mm-hmm.
as a result of working the steps, and that was early, early in the step work, and I was like, it's going to be okay. Why? Because it goes to the last one. Because there is a God. It's not Terry.
It's not me. What?
Can't put him in a box. Doing for you what you couldn't do for yourself.
Yep, that's exactly. Are these extravagant promises? We
We
think
think
not.
not.
They're
No,
materialized around us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but they always materialize if we work for them.
got to do the work, which
Yep.
I love that. I think there's part of the inspiration of the podcast is how do you do the work? Well, here is an example of a person I am very proud to call a friend, obviously doing the work and also proof that when you do the work, there is a lot of joy that you can have a complete turnaround. And when you stop doing the work, well, it starts going back to the way that it was.
It's really true.
Terry, anything that you would additionally like to say or plug or anything while I've got you on here?
Gratitude. Don't forget to be grateful. I think that if we forget to be grateful, for me, that's when I start to spiral. And I look back now. One of the reasons I like going to therapy and I like going to meetings, the reasons I like it is because it reminds me who I was.
Hmm.
I have a great forgetter, right? I remember the good things about drinking and drugging, but I forget the bad ones. I can certainly talk to my wife, my family. They'll tell me what the bad ones were, my friends. But I have a great forgetter. And if I'm not grateful, things can go really bad. And I have to stay in gratitude. I think staying in gratitude is just really, really important. And it's hard to do that sometimes. But if I look at where I've come from, because AA, the group therapy, that all helps me remember where I came from, it's really hard not to be grateful because I look back now and see all the great things that have happened.
Yeah. Well, proof that if you do the work, really, really great things. Terry, you have impacted so many lives, and also, just that ripple effect too of how many people you have inspired, like me, who then also changed the lives of other people. But still, like this thread of humility through all of that, dude, just really, really proud to know you and to have you as a friend. And thanks for joining and spreading some experience, strength, and hope. And that sobriety can be fun if you're
It
going.
can be. It can be fun and happy and joyful. It really can, and it is.
Yeah. So if you're in the meeting with the smoke and the bad paneling and it feels kind of stale, keep searching. There's other meetings out there. Maybe that's just not the right one at 6 or 7 a.m., but some of the, especially the night meetings can be
Oh, those are fun.
they can be pretty raw.
Yeah,
So I always tell people, going to meetings, it's like going to a restaurant that you wouldn't go to a Waffle House at 11 p.m. and then say, I will never go to a restaurant again as long as I live,
that's
because
right.
you'd be missing out on Fifth Ave brunch, with all the
Yeah.
bougie chicken and waffles. And so. Terry, thank you for throwing some pizzazz and spice into recovery. I don't know if it would have been as exciting for me or if I would have stuck around as I did. I certainly needed my first several years sober. I'd say probably my first 3 years sober. I went to a meeting 7 days a week. I needed that, and I was so fearful of going backwards. But people like you really made it exciting for me, and I wanted to be connected. You really made a program come to life that it wasn't just words on a page, but actually, well, now we know it was actually potentially mania. But thanks for sharing that, man. Yeah, thanks for your time today, Terry. Really
Thank you,
appreciate it.
man. It was good seeing you. I appreciate you.
Thanks for spending the time with me. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with somebody who may need to hear it. Be kind to yourself, be kind to people around you. Remember that we're all doing the best that we can with the tools that we currently have, and we're all capable of growing past that. If you'd like to reach out or connect, send me an email, brian@naplesintegratedrecovery.com. I hope to hear from you there. In the meantime, thanks again for listening. I'll see you on the next one.